Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session Reimagining Healthcare and Life Sciences with AI from Data to Impact. My name is Brittany Haley, and I will be the moderator of our session today. I am a partner solutions architect. I have been with AWS for over 4 years now, and I support our consulting partners such as Reveal HealthTech to build their AWS practices and offerings to deliver to their customers. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes, we're going to dive into the power of data and how today's AI technologies are finally mature enough to unlock its full potential. You'll be hearing from our team at Reveal HealthTech and AWS, who will walk us through a real-world project that involved complex systems, multi-step data processing, and ultimately delivered meaningful insights and measurable business outcomes to the customer. We'll also explore some of the latest developments in multimodal data intelligence and how AI agents are transforming the way that organizations discover and act on insights. And after the discussion, we'll open the floor for questions and answers, so feel free to drop your questions in the Zoom chat anytime during the session, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the session. So today we are joined by Ramesh and Gloria from Reveal HealthTech and Pierre from AWS. It's great to have you all here. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Yeah, thanks for having us today. So my name is Ramesh. I'm the head of machine learning here at Reveal HealthTech, where I lead our machine learning and AI team and help direct our machine learning AI strategy across our project teams. And really, I want to help make sure that our project teams are able to see around corners, anticipate common patterns and trends that come up in machine learning and AI projects, and ensure we're using the latest and greatest technology. And it's been really interesting to see the field evolve over the about 2 decades or so I've been working in it, starting with a PhD at the Medical Vision Group at MIT, working with doctors and neuroscientists studying medical images like MRIs, CTs, to help them understand trends and patterns in large populations using medical imaging. And then at a product company, building what at the time was state-of-the-art handwriting recognition, and now for several years working in services, helping healthcare life sciences companies use AI to really empower their workflows. Gloria?
Hi everyone, I'm Gloria. I lead the Apply AI Lab team here at Reveal. It's a cross-functional team that focuses on transforming real-world challenges in healthcare and life science into scalable AI-driven solution. You can really think of my team as the internal R&D engine for applied experimentation. My team has created foundational AI infrastructure, agentic workflows, MCP-compatible workflows, and engineering assets that power the next generation of intelligence in healthcare and life science clients. Prior to leading the Apply AI Lab team, I was a product manager at Reveal, working directly with our clients in strategically incorporating advanced machine learning or AI into the most appropriate workflows or teams. So thank you so much for having me here today. Looking forward to share more of our experience. Pierre.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reveal, for organizing this panel. Yeah, so I'm Pierre Dimaliard. I'm an AI ML solutions architect here at AWS. And so I've a background in applied mathematics. I've been in the AI ML space for over 10 years at this point, three of these at AWS. And here at AWS, I support our healthcare and life sciences customers, so global medical device companies, healthcare companies, and pharma companies drive their AI ML initiatives. And as you can imagine, in the last few years, GenAI initiatives from like initial scoping all the way through like production challenges and so on. So we're excited to be here and share our perspective.
Yeah, thanks. We're all really excited to have you here and to hear all your insights. Before we dive into the discussion on data and how new technologies are reshaping decision-making, let's learn more about Reveal HealthTech and how you've been helping your healthcare and life sciences organizations today.
Yeah, so at Reveal, we really think of our work as helping healthcare life sciences organizations navigate digital transformation kind of through the lens of data and intelligence. And that can be anything from, building new software to scale internal workflows. It can be adopting machine learning AI to drive insights. And we really believe in going along with our clients and taking them along the journey of transformation. really understanding what are their core pain points, what's going to drive business success, and helping them build human-centric solutions that'll address these issues head on. A couple examples of more things we've worked on, things like extracting data from unstructured documents with tables and charts, surfacing them to end users via RAG or AI agents, building out a patient assistant to help ease patients into a new treatment device or workflow, helping them troubleshoot, get into the process. We've built machine learning models for patient risk stratification and care coordination. So that's kind of a flavor of the kinds of things we've worked on.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a clear running theme around data from all those projects you mentioned. And as technology evolves, we've come a long way from the traditional analytics to using machine learning to uncover deeper patterns and insights from those massive amounts of data that organizations have today. From your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges that clients face when it comes to adopting AI, data and AI solutions?
Yeah, I think that's I think there's like one theme that emerges. One of them is data accessibility, right? So what we see is typically, and that like goes both for like healthcare companies as well as life sciences organizations. Like the typical health system organization, for example, right, might have like patient data scattered across different health systems, right? Like different electronic health record systems from different vendors, different imaging archive systems, different lab information systems, right? Different genomics platforms, different legacy databases that they're using. And as clinicians or like AI applications are being built, right? Like you need to access data across all these different data sources. That really makes like building applications a little cumbersome, right? And that's like what you see is like that really slows down like clinicians in understanding like getting a good full picture of the patient's journey. And it's even hard. It's also hard to like identify like patients for appropriate like clinical trial that might be want be included in. So that becomes really cumbersome. So when we think of like this data fragmentation, right? Like it is not only like like an abstract like IT problem. It is obviously it sadly also leads to increased barrier in patient care, in slowing down innovation, right? And clinicians, as they are like tracking down this information and like hunting down data points, like that slows down innovation tremendously. So that is really the big challenge, right, in AI adoption, like data fragmentation.
Yeah, that really brings the challenge to life. So what are some of the most effective ways that you've seen organizations start to bridge those data silos? And what role does modern cloud or AI technology play into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, right? So like we here at AWS, being a technology provider, we approach this two ways, right? Like one way is obviously with like services that that make data harmonization simpler. And we have like a plethora of like services that are dedicated to specific data modalities. So, for example, like Healthomics for genomics data, or health imaging as a data archival solution. And the more like general like purpose type of services we offer, we have like our latest generation of SageMaker Unified Studio, which is our AI ML like data platform, which brings both data governance and model governance under one umbrella. And that is one of the many things we like on the service side of things that we bring to the table to make standardization of of data APIs and model APIs across across the spectrum of all these different data modalities. So it is on the side of like services. What we also see is in the space of agentic AI, right? Like in this new era, I'm really hopeful because we see also a lot of applications of like GenAI and agentic workflows that help improve this data harmonization workflows. Just to give you an example, right? Like one common problem is that there are a lot of different data formats out there for electronic health records, and typically when you design like data sets for AI/ML workflows, you need to like harmonize them and make sure that they follow one common standard. And one of the standards that people want to follow, for example, is like the OMOP data model, right? And as you try to merge different data sets that come from different vendors, right? Like you need to create harmonization scripts for each one of these data sources. And this is something that with the advent of generative AI, this is a process that used to be really cumbersome, and now it can happen in a way shorter amount of time, right? So you can use both code generation capabilities of these large language models, as well as this agentic thinking loops combined with a human in the loop, right, to obviously verify the generated code. And that helps you generate libraries, recipes of code harmonization that you can then deploy in production. And that this becomes a virtuous cycle, right, of harmonizing the data. So that's just one simple example of one specific data modality, right, electronic health records. But where we see the GenAI capabilities really be a massive game changer. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing similar trend or patterns with our client organizations. Beyond the data fragmentation and lack of data discoverability, I think there's just general feeling of paralyzed by the seemingly insurmountable data problems or data gaps. And our client organization often ask us if the data is not entirely ready, should we even embark on any sort of AI or ML technology adoption? And our role at Reveal when advising our client is to help them take a much closer look at the actual data that they have. Firstly, we need to recognize that each business unit and team or department may have different access to data and may have different data need inherently. And some of the teams are naturally at much better position to adopt more advanced technology. And so really, we don't have to wait for the entire organization to be ready to start this transfer AI and data transformation. One of the clear example that we've seen over and over again in the healthcare setting is around care scheduling. So the care scheduling both for in-hospital and out-of-hospital clients. Out-of-hospital, think of home care, where the scheduling currently still relying on making phone calls, having human scheduler to actually match the calendars and then match the preferences of the patient and the caregiver in order to arrive at a good schedule. And it really is impacting our client organization's ability to expand organically without having to hire additional schedulers as operation overhead. And if we look deeper into the whole sort of data landscape for the scheduling team, they actually are equipped with a very healthy baseline of data, including all the availability as well as provider specialties and their geographic location, including patients, their needs, their preference in sort of the hospital setting versus in the out-of-hospital settings, we have the clients, we can also call them patients, their preference and do they need medication needs and so on. And there's all those unstructured notes that are taken down by these client specialists, by these schedulers as they're talking to these clients and care providers. And so we really discovered a healthy enough baseline data set to actually construct the scheduling optimization algorithm for a lot of our clients across the board. And this then really help our clients to identify the actual data gaps that will help then improve the algorithm that we have built for them. So this all speaks to sort of building that positive virtuous cycle, data flywheel, where data enables machine learning and machine learning adoption in turn drives stronger data discipline.
Yeah, that's such a great point that AI adoption doesn't have to wait for the perfect data. And in many ways, it helps make that data better. And so now with the rise of generative AI, we're seeing an even bigger opportunity to accelerate that process. Ramesh, could you share an example of how Reveal is helping clients to bring this to life?
Yeah, so as Gloria mentioned, client organizations, they're really adopting Gen AI at a varying speed. So even within the same organization, you may have different teams and functions that have a different level of comfort with GenAI, a different level of data readiness. And so teams, again, may have different levels of access to data. One thing that we've seen in life sciences organizations is some of the first adopters of GenAI are often the commercial and sales team. And part of this is having kind of a lower risk associated with GenAI adoption compared to teams that might be more directly working with patients, interpreting research outcomes. So this is a project we worked on with a large pharmaceutical company, and we were brought in with the vision to build a robust platform that could really equip their commercial, sales, and eventually medical teams with a more holistic view on market sentiment, reactions to drugs, and enable complex decision-making with insights surfaced for data-driven decisions. And so the requirement for the platform included getting these insights from many different sources of unstructured data. Things like social media, CRM, surveys, documents from internal meeting notes, and so on. And this is everything from structured data in tables to information that lives in more unstructured documents. But what most of it had in common was that it was predominantly unstructured text with a little bit of structured information or metadata on top. And so we're really dealing with a large volume of data, and most of it is pretty heterogeneous, pretty unstructured, and we had to build a platform that really needed to answer to a broad suite of different use cases.
Yeah, it sounds complex. What challenges did the client face here, and how did Reveal help them to overcome them?
Yeah, so a couple examples. So we had a substantial amount of missing data, and we actually ended up using some advanced machine learning to reliably fill in gaps in the data set, right? Fill in missing fields, enhance, augment the data for better searchability. And from a modeling perspective, the outcomes that our client wanted really varied in technical complexity. For some use cases, things like summarize a large collection of documents into a concise, actionable item, we wanted to use large language models like Claude through Bedrock. But for others, maybe say, look at the sentiment of this or generate some topics from the data, we wanted to deploy smaller, faster, cheaper models. And this is where we kind of brought in off-the-shelf and even custom-trained models that we hosted on SageMaker. And this is the kind of thing where I think the AWS services we used helped us navigate that complexity pretty well. Things like AWS Bedrock for bringing in output from LLMs, and Lambda for serverless tasks, SageMaker for hosting, managing the sort of wide range of models that we're using, and of course API Gateway for hosting a scalable, user-friendly application at the end. And this was really kind of a multi-year effort that we started from basically near zero to eventually putting together a fully functioning platform where users can interact with their data, kind of slice and dice it, chat with it, gain an overview on sentiments, regionality, and really dig deep onto what's trending, what's driving those trends, things like that. And again, one of the most exciting parts, and to kind of echo what Gloria and Pierre have mentioned earlier, is that we really got to help them build out a data flywheel, this virtuous cycle, right? Beyond the top line, bottom line impact of helping them make better decisions and bring these insights to people's fingertips, the application itself is data enabling and propelling, right? The machine learning insights generated by the model then get pushed back to a central data lake, which enables further use cases by analytics teams, medical teams, commercial teams. And again, we have this virtuous cycle of data innovation and insight generation.
Yeah, that's such a powerful example of how data innovation can really build its own momentum, where each new insight strengthens the foundation for the next. And now we're seeing that same principle expand beyond just text and numbers. Pierre, as organizations mature in their data strategy, are you seeing growing interest in connecting other kinds of data like images, scans, or even sensor data to unlock those deeper insights?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a trend that, what we see. So as I said earlier, right, the first step is obviously you want to have your data, harmonized, meaning even for one single, data modality, you want to make sure that with different data different data formats, are standardized. And, that's GenAI can help. That's what I illustrated before, right? we do see, right, like that as these data formats are being more harmonized, people start building applications that combine different data modalities, in one single application. So there's two ways that people do this. Like there are obviously a lot of models that are multimodal, right? So vision language models would be like one of these examples, right? Or like all the like text to speech models and so on, right? Like where we combine like one modality to another, and then of course building applications that combine different data modalities under one application, right? And this is where like agentic applications can help a lot, right? So as a simple example, I want to bring up this example of research agents that have been pretty popular with our customers, where what we typically what the problem we're trying to solve here is helping research scientists typically in a life science company, right? Query data across different data sources, right? So like as a researcher is doing his job, right, like he might want to surface information that lives in different data formats. So like some of information can be stored in part of like imaging records, right? Some of it can be within like genomic sequences, and they might like care about certain patterns in the gene sequencing data. They might want to query specific databases such as like medical literature in PubMed. They might want to like query different like biological pathways that are stored, known to be associated with certain like proteins and so on in some over like data in some over like public databases or also internal ones. And what we see is like people like these companies take advantage of like the capabilities of this agentic AI and create tools that allow one application to access these different data formats, right? So as a researcher might want to like query, for example, a structured database, leverage the power of large language models to generate SQL queries, or instead of doing a lot of like having like an agent memorize the way to query, like a given public API, like package this as an MCP server, and this way allowing researchers to talk to these databases through natural language, right? And that really lowers like the barrier to entry to access this information. So information becomes more accessible, and it really like improves these workflows. And so really having this like interface being like natural language really empowers all these scientists, and really allows them to like consume different data modalities that before maybe they weren't able to, right? So think about like maybe there are a lot of like research scientists that don't know necessarily how to query like a gene sequencing database, because these are highly specialized like skill sets. Now this database can be exposed through like an agent, and now like a scientist can talk to his data sources when previously they would have had to rely on a specialist. So that makes like this different data modalities more like it just democratizes the access to all the data modalities. But this is really exciting to see. So that's something we see.
Yeah. We're definitely seeing something very similar. And Pierre talked a lot about how to make the multimodal data accessible. But at Reveal, especially my team, we ask ourselves, if we put all of these multimodal data together in one space, what kind of nuance and detail can we uncover? And that's why we've actually built out this prepackaged accelerator solution called BioCanvas, which sits in the middle of the multimodal data and multimodal use case. So let's explore a bit about why would multimodal data enable this type of use case. So we've learned that over 80% of clinical trial actually not meeting target, largely due to its inability to recruit and target the right patients in cohort, put them into cohort in the predefined timeline. And well, a lot of it definitely has to do with sort of the clinical trial site coordination, but some of it really has to do with the data being able to put together all of those important data, not just their EHR, not just their diagnosis, but also the image of their, let's say, tumor, and being able to put together the longitudinal aspect of patient disease history, their disease progression, so that the clinical trial worker or researcher could query through all of these data when they're combined together and really find the patients that are good candidate for a specific drug. And when we move along sort of the value chain within any life science or pharmaceutical company, completing clinical trial is really just the first step. Then you will have the medical scientific engagement. You will have to then be prepared to commercially launch the drug. And in a lot of cases, some of this nuance, the clinical trial findings may be lost in the transition from clinical trial to medical team to commercial team. How can we actually put them together, ingest the data only once, but make it purposeful and useful to the team that are downstream, which the data still serve critical purpose for them? And so that's how we envision BioCanvas, which is this intelligence layer that has all these pre-built components that together can ingest all suites of data that's laid out here at the bottom. And through the combination of use of cancer detection models, of data harmonization, and put them into the robust tensor space, which then enable the user to start answering these questions. Does this trial site meet my trial protocol? Find me patients with similar scan results and disease progression, and what has contributed to patients' reported adverse event, and what is affecting my target physician prescribing behavior. Again, we're really talking about ingesting these powerful multimodal data once, but then organize them and make them discoverable in a way that can really benefit all of the players along this value chain within our life science and pharmaceutical organizations. Obviously, we understand that, in the modern world, any sort of AI and ML adoption is not a plug and play. Any sort of adoption, there is going to be a baseline foundation that's been laid out, and then we have to customize it for our specific data that we're working with, or just specific client needs, or the specific area that the client wants to target. And that's why BioCanvas is really constructed in a foundational way, where we have these libraries and pre-built components that we can then start putting them together, connecting them, and then that will serve the client's purpose, and then leave room for customization for our clients' needs.
Thanks, Gloria. BioCanvas is such an exciting look at where multimodal intelligence is headed in healthcare. I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience are curious about how they can learn more about it or see it in action. What's the best way for them to connect with your team?
Definitely. So the Reveal team will be attending the AWS reInvent showcasing BioCanvas. And so if you're attending, please stop by, and we'd love to show you what we're working on. And for anyone who cannot make it, feel free to reach out directly to myself or Tyler, our head of life science, to learn more about how Reveal is helping organizations by bringing AI to life.
Thanks, Gloria, and thanks to all of our panelists for those thoughtful insights here. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. If there's really one takeaway that I've heard, it's that data that you already have holds tremendous untapped value, and the tools are here now to get that value from it. So we really encourage you to think about where AI could make the biggest impact in your organization, and to connect with the Reveal team to really explore what's possible. So let's open it up for questions and answers. We'd love to hear your thoughts and any questions that you may have for the Reveal team, as well as Pierre from AWS. Feel free to post any of your questions in the chat here, and we'll answer those here. I do see one question that came in. Gloria, you made an interesting point about the baseline data sets, how they can help in scheduling offsets and also figure out the gaps in data sets or exams. Do you have an example that has already been in place?
Can I just clarify the example that's already been in place? Does it mean a specific client project or a specific baseline data? Not sure if the participants can speak up. Client project. Yes.
Client
So
project.
yeah. So yeah, we've definitely done the scheduling optimization algorithm for different clients, mostly for home care clients out of hospital care setting right now. And when we look at the client data set, what we found out is that in the last several decades of them being in business, doing this scheduling, they have accumulated tons of data. For example, the critical input is caregiver's availability and client's care need. And then there is the client's triage level. Some clients, they cannot get out of bed if they don't have caregiver helping them, versus some clients who don't have critical needs. So there's already a prioritization of the client needs. And then they do capture, because this is such a human-centric business, they capture preferences, both from the caregiver and from the client side. As simple as, can somebody work with a client who has a cat or a dog? To does this caregiver actually can help with medication administration if the client needs so. So then there's the preference attribute, that's what we call them. And there's definitely a geographic location. And our algorithm is built in such a way that we take into consideration of the fact that some caregiver could be making several stops along the way, so that we actually construct it in a way that they go to the furthest client first and then slowly traveling back to the client that are closer to where they live. And then, so those are kind of all on the structured data side. Now on the unstructured data side, a lot of these clients have already employed some sort of a call software that will actually record the call, or at least have summarization of the call noted down. So those are the unstructured data set that we also tapped into. We've done topic modeling. We've done different algorithm to identify, let's say, if there's a lot of incidents related to caregiver, or if there's some recurring incidents related to a caregiver, what does this really mean in terms of scheduling? So I'd say that those are all the data that a lot of our healthcare clients have, but then never really thought about using it until we start taking a deeper look with them.
Thanks, Gloria.
Looks like we have another question about doctors and the role that doctors play in the development of AI. And I'll take this one. This is one thing that I really enjoy about our work here at Reveal, is that we really do like to collaborate really closely with our clients, with domain experts, right? We bring a lot of expertise in machine learning and AI, and also medical expertise, right? Our chief medical information officer, Dr. Salim Afshar, it really helps us on projects bring in that medical context. I think it's really important when developing projects for AI in healthcare and life sciences to have that medical, clinical, scientific perspective in the room, to make sure that what we're building is not just technology for the sake of technology, but really technology for the sake of improving the practice of care, improving the development of therapeutics, to actually drive value for the business, but also to improve people's lives. So I think that the process of AI and machine learning has to be one where the technology, the AI, the machine learning kind of work hand in hand with the clinical medical expertise. And that's how we like to practice it.
Yeah. And a lot of time when we work with our client, we do seek doctors and professionals' input on, let's say, patient risk stratification. So we've done similar project in the past when we actually stratify the risk of a patient. What are some of the key elements that we should look at? How to prioritize them? What kind of way do we put on each of these factors? And that's the sort of concrete examples of how we collaborate with doctors. And we've also done in the past projects where we go on site and interview a lot of doctors who will ultimately be using the system or the software that we are delivering. And really, they're sort of the user advocate for us to gather, user input, requirements, and user feedback.
Thanks, Gloria Ramesh. To everyone on the webinar, please feel free to post any other questions you may have. In the meantime, I do have a question. What are some of the biggest mistakes that organizations may make when they start their AI journey that you've all seen?
Yeah, I can start by taking that one. One thing that we've seen is there is a lot of push for development of AI, which leads a lot of organizations to rush to adopt AI. One thing that we've seen is the ones that are really successful have an idea of how they might want to drive value in mind. And this is something we often work with our clients, right? Our clients might come to us and say, we're interested in AI, and we really work with them to understand what their pain points are, what the opportunities for value creation with AI are. So it's not just, we're building out an agent or a chatbot for the sake of the technology, but really for the sake of the business. I don't know, Pierre, if you have anything to add from what you've seen. Or you're muted.
Indeed. Yeah, so at AWS we have this kind of like phrase where we say like the crawl, walk, like run approach, right? Like so I think the mistake that people sometimes make is like they want to do everything at once, right? For example, when it comes to agents, they want to build like 10 agents in parallel and they haven't built one in production, right? So I think the nice thing is like start small, right? And build your knowledge this way, and you can like move fast with small proof of concepts and like maybe put a small agent in production. And as you do that, right, I understand we understand the trade-offs as you build like systems of agents and so on. As an example, that is something that's important. And then I would say like, obviously like leverage the in-house expertise you have, but also rely on people that have developed this expertise themselves. Here at AWS, we do rely on our partners oftentimes, such as like Reveal, right? And that helps our customers like achieve greater things because like they can actually also rely on that expertise that these partners built over time, right? So that's something I would also recommend.
Yeah. I do want to bring out one point is about chasing the next best AI technology, where I've seen there are a lot of noise created around these new AI-backed software, especially with generative AI, the new software, the new startup just coming out like in such fast speed. And I've seen clients trying to understand their options and if they really have to keep up with the rate at which these new softwares are being introduced. And I think the most important thing or the biggest mistake is to try to adopt the latest, the newest, because the latest and newest may not have been properly sort of tested by the demand of the market, may not be tested by actual use cases. And even as little as now OpenAI has introduced a new GPT model, should we make the switch to the latest GPT model? I think that kind of decision needs to be really evaluated with pre-established KPIs, with pre-established matrix, instead of jumping ahead and just making the decision that because it is the latest, it must be the greatest. So I think that's definitely one of the more contentious area.
It looks like we have another question that came in. How do you work with PACS and EHR providers? So how do you access the data? There's a lot of resistance there, and they also use old age servers. So how do you actually bring GenAI and get data from those?
I mean, so I think it really depends on I think the use case of the company, right? Like I don't think there's a blanket answer here. There are obviously like I think I understand what the illusion here is. There's definitely like some EHR vendors that make the data accessibility a little more cumbersome, to say the least. But there's obviously, like, I mean, for example, when a clinical trial is run, like a typical pharma company does have a right to access this data, and so it's more like the CROs that own this data process and so on. Like there's like a lot of investment in that space. I think like the EHR vendors though are moving as well, and then the standard there's like the way that this data needs to be consumed to like create value is evolving as well. So there's hope there as well. So that's what I would say.
A follow-up question on that is, does AWS have any services to connect with these providers directly to have access? And also, is that compliant if so?
Yeah, so like I don't think we have a specific like connector with like specific EHR vendors or stuff like that. We do have so we have like AWS HealthLake, which is a Fire like data storage. So like that allows you to like for some of these companies that are like building like their electronic health systems, like using the Fire system, the Fire standard, that makes that simple, more simple. But again, like there's so many like EHR vendors out there, so I think that's maybe a really specific conversation on like like targeted on EHRs. But like I think it would be the question would be specific on each EHR vendor you're dealing with.
Looks like we have a question about multimodal data. So questions with multimodal data coming from diverse sources like EHRs, imaging, clinical notes. How does BioCanvas ensure data normalization and interoperability while also maintaining privacy, expandability, and trust, especially when using GenAI for retrieval and insight generation? And so this is one of the things that we really thought about in the design of BioCanvas to make sure that it's able to operate with from a diverse source of inputs. Right, thinking about bringing in data from these different sources, from EHRs, from imaging, from notes, into a single platform. And so, we've built out an initial data pipeline with some starter data sources, but really this is something we're thinking about building the next generation of BioCanvas over, the next few months of really being able to ingest a wide range of data sources, different kinds of EHR, different imaging formats, and so on. And then the second half of the question on privacy, explainability, and trust. So again, this is where we follow the principle of do what we can to host things within our clients' ecosystems, right? As much as possible. Can we host a model? Can we run the model within the client ecosystem? For example, for the imaging, we're using a pre-trained model that we're hosting on AWS SageMaker to process the images, right? And so all of the data stays within the client's AWS infrastructure to embed that data, to retrieve that data when a patient uploads it. Insights from GenAI, again, this is where we use the HIPAA-compliant restricted APIs from Bedrock, Claude, and so on to make sure that we're not exposing any PII, PHI to in a way that would be non-compliant. So we definitely do think a lot about compliance, about security, because our clients are healthcare and life sciences organizations, right? Where ensuring trust, protecting patient data is critical, both from a compliance and from an ethical standpoint. And so we really do prioritize building solutions that are technologically advanced, that use the latest and greatest in AI and machine learning, but also are compliant and make sure to protect the privacy of the data we're working with.
And the way that we've really thought about BioCanvas and how our clients could leverage it, especially for building trust, is that we are not giving the client, hey, here's BioCanvas, just go run with it. It's more of a very iterative process where we start small. We talk about the multimodal data, but we're not saying that on the first day, it makes sense to just ingest the universe of possible data that the client would have. We'll start small with, for example, if clinical trial is one of the target area, we'll start with the most relevant multimodal data set for clinical trials, including MRI scan, including the clinician notes and the structured data. and then iterate it through actual end users to actually build the trust to say we are surfacing the patients with supporting images that do make sense given the user query or the user search or the user intent. And it's only from there where we'll start expanding to include more data. And the good thing about BioCanvas is that we already have the mechanism to expand. It's just the most importantly to identify one core area to start first to build trust. In terms of explainability, because generative AI is not like traditional machine learning model where you could produce sharp value or hardcore statistics to evaluate the output. Obviously, there's RAGAs, there's LM as a judge. So there are framework out there to put guardrails around it. And so in terms of explainability, it's more of surfacing the supporting data that ultimately drive the insights or the answer to our users so that our user can also make a judgment call to say, is this, does this make sense or does it not? And so that user feedback capture is also very important.
Thanks, Claire. You did mention something like you don't just give the client BioCanvas and they're on their own to run. So how do you ensure that some of these AI solutions are actually getting adopted by users and they're not just sitting on the shelf?
I think with a lot of the client organizations we've worked with, some of the users feel threatened by the fact that, okay, there's AI, it might replace us or it might actually make our life even harder. And so I'm always a firm believer on really identifying the user, the client, change advocate, change champions, and take them along the journey of starting from zero to then having something to showcase very quickly, and then soliciting feedbacks, and then making sure that they feel heard, and building their feedback into a prioritized product feature backlog instead of coming up with the product feature just sort of in our own project working group or without involving the key user champions. And a lot of times, some organization would expect a big bang deployment or release or a launch, and then the rest is just leave it up to the user to adopt. But they tend to ignore that it could take several months after the initial launch to actually make user adopt their workflow to something that will be compatible with the software that we have just launched. So that hand-holding period is very important. And so that's where I think at Reveal, we really want to build that long-term partnership instead of just focusing on launching a great piece of software and then leave it to our client.
I mean, I have another question if we have time, if we want me to ask. Okay,
Sure,
great. I'd say, kind of going off of a previous question, but what are some of the common challenges with GenAI accuracy, and how do we help to mitigate the risks like hallucinations with that?
Yeah, Pierre, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things, right? Like, so obviously, depending on the sensitivity of a workload, right? Like these might be more or less acceptable, right? That's the first thing, and I think think of the risk profile of your application is something you should always keep in mind, especially obviously in the healthcare life science sector. Then acknowledging the fact that hallucinations do happen, right? There's obviously a couple of mitigation approaches one can take, right? Like one would be obviously to have a human in the loop type of approach, right? Like where you a human can reveal the output, can look at the outputs of an agentic system, of an LLM output, right, and see whether like it's consistent with previous with expectations or his own knowledge, right? So that's always one approach. There are also like a couple of technologies that exist out there and that we here at AWS are investing in. One of them being automated reasoning, which I recommend the audience here to look into. And I think, but are highly promising, which rely on symbolic reasoning under the hood to make sure that the text that's being generated can be translated into like expressions that the reasoning system can reason through with mathematical accuracy. And that's something that we've seen actually have a tremendous like impact on sensitive workloads. For example, looking at whether like a health insurance policy, like whether like a question is consistent with like a given health insurance policy and stuff like that, right? Where you don't want the health system, like your agentic system, to hallucinate, right? So this type of technology and approaches are really promising and actually have a tremendous impact. Yeah, like I don't know whether Ramesh, you want to add to this and what you've seen work also at Reveal.
Yeah, and I think this is where, Pierre, you mentioned earlier the crawl, walk, run approach, and I think that goes for evaluation too, right? I think it's a lot easier to constrain and understand the outputs for a simpler system. And so, we like to think of building things up incrementally, iterating, getting our clients an MVP, an app that they can work with, and then iterating and improving. And with that MVP, with that narrower scope, it's a lot easier to constrain the output. We've often, in many cases, used structured output APIs from LLMs to avoid any undesired output or poorly formatted output. The more constrained the task, we've found that the less hallucinations we see. And so that's usually where we start. And then as we iterate, we improve in complexity. One thing that we also do is build out a test harness, right? We have a test set of data. We want to make sure that for this set, we're generating useful, reliable output. Again, using standard machine learning best practices, but bringing them into the GenAI era, right? So we have that reliable, trustworthy thing of saying, well, we know that the model does this well on this test set, and so we trust that it will do well going forward. And then Gloria also mentioned LLM as a judge. Obviously we have human in the loop, which is sort of the gold standard for reviewing LLM output. One thing that we can do is add another layer of an LLM, either in an agentic workflow or orchestrated some other way where we have an LLM review the output against a certain number of criteria, right? If we're worried about compliance, if we're worried about privacy, if we're worried about security, if it's a therapeutic and we want to avoid this application providing medical advice to avoid, being subject to certain regulations, or falling within the purview of certain regulations, I should say, then we want to make sure that we're providing that information reliably. And so we can have an LLM assess the output along those different dimensions and then surface to a human in the loop, maybe only the things that are highest risk of, being hallucinations, of not meeting that constraint.
Thanks. And we do have two more questions that came in. One is, we had mentioned that there's a tenfold increase in user adoption after improving the user experience and explainable AI views. So with that, what were the key design or workflow elements that made the biggest difference in helping medical and commercial teams actually trust and use these AI-driven insights day to day?
I think that's with regards to the case study, right?
I believe so, yes.
The tenfold increase in user adoption.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, this is the design and workflow elements here that really brought this together, was working really closely with our clients, right? We actually spent 3-4 weeks doing a detailed series of user interviews, understanding the existing workflow, understanding what are the pain points, how do users interact with this data, what do they want to get out of it, right? And once we really understood that, then we set to work building out an application that would surface the most important data elements first, right? Users were really interested in, what are the key topics coming up? So we made sure that, the output of the topic modeling is interpretable, it's explainable, it's aligned with what they're looking for, and it's able to provide the information that they need at their fingertips, at the top of the application. And so this is the sort of thing where it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all of like, this is the design element that's going to drive this. It's really again, this is what goes back to what I was saying earlier, going along with our clients on this journey of transformation, right? Understanding what are their pain points, what's going to drive value for them, and then ensuring that the application that we build meets that need, right? Surfacing the thing that they want front and center, making sure that, the application has the information that they need, the AI-driven insights that they want, front and center, accessible to them with the relevant explanations, citations, and so on available too.
One of the pitfall which we always want to avoid falling into when we are implementing any sort of generative AI-backed solution is to treat it as if it's a black box, because in reality, that's not really the whole picture. It does look magical. You just ingest all of these data and voila, the LLM gives you such a great answer that look plausible. But a very important thing we always do with our client is to actually break down the process. That here is the data that you've provided us. Here is the way that we are chunking the data, that we're organizing the data, that we're interlinking the data. And here's the way that we are ingesting. What kind of ingestion, what kind of embedding model do we actually use to embed these important data that our client has given us? And then how do we actually ingest it, and how do we retrieve it? In the whole retrieval process, that's also a lot of time where we spend and showcase the different retrieval outcome to our client. If it's not what the client desire, can we implement some sort of a re-ranking mechanism? And all of this, we make it as transparent to our client and end user champion as much as possible. And once they're taken through this process, it helps them demystify the whole sort of power of generative AI. And also, on top of that, there are bells and whistles we add to the front end to obviously make sure that there's always citation. There's always information to the user saying that since you've asked this question, this is the agent tool that I'm going to call, and this is the action that I'm going to take. And bringing that kind of transparency will also help build user confidence as well. And also letting user know that they're not just leave there hanging after we deliver the product, that if they've found significant deviation from the answer they've expected, there is a proper way to address those problems.
And I think we have one final question with the time we have. So as we see GenAI and multimodal intelligence evolve, how are we seeing solutions like BioCanvas and AWS Health and Research Agent help organizations to bridge the real world data with clinical trial insights while still ensuring the data quality, compliance, and scalability across their different healthcare systems?
I mean, to me, the one trend we see overall, right, like is, I think with like the advent of AI, like the access to information is just becoming increasingly like simpler, right? If you think of it, like the age of the internet, right, made access to information like easier, and now with the agent, like the new era of like chatbots and now like agentic like interfaces, right? Like now we can use this technology to access information that like was like further like harder to consume in the past, right? And that, like when you think of like, for example, the specific example of like health and research agents, right? Like it just makes like this democratization of information, like so much more of a reality. and that is extremely exciting. And I think that's like the main thing I see is like organizations now can really like extract information and share information in an easier way, and that's amazing. As you build this data access, we build it out, right? Like obviously this data quality that you're extracting, like how do you surface information is important, and obviously keeping the data access, data like controls in place is important, and that's where like you need to make sure that the technology resources, the technology partners you're building these solutions with keep that in mind, right? And when we think, for example, of like agentic like solutions, like making sure that like like a given tool that a given agent has access to, making sure that like the authorization authentication processes are in place to control that, but that is extremely critical. So I think that's something that like is part of a the implementation conversation, right? It definitely can be done, and it's being done, right? So I think that's definitely something we can have an entire session on, right? In a way. So.
Great. Well, with that, thank you again to all of our panelists for sharing all of their knowledge and insights, and everyone for joining today and engaging with us and asking questions. Again, on the screen, you can see some of the ways you can connect with Reveal as well. If you're going to be at reInvent, definitely try and check them out and get a demo of BioCanvas.
Thank you all.